Let's talk about Kirk Cousins showing up at the Falcons facility for some voluntary offseason workouts. Honestly, if I had to rank the importance of this news, it would be pretty low. Like, I'd rather discuss whether there was a second shooter on the grassy knoll in 1963 than talk about Cousins at the Falcons facility. Now, Atlanta has been in some trade talks regarding Cousins. During the NFL owners' meeting, they mentioned they'd do what's best for both the team and Cousins. Adam Schefter recently reported that the Falcons are quietly working on a trade. They want to lighten the financial load because Cousins has a hefty contract, $27.5 million in base salary, and a $10 million roster bonus that kicked in back in March. So, the Falcons are likely trying to find a way to split that $37.5 million with another team. But it's not easy to find a partner willing to take on that kind of cash. Here's why this is actually good news for Atlanta. They can use Cousins' presence at the facility as leverage. If there's a desperate team out there that needs a quarterback after the draft, the Falcons can say, "Hey, look, Kirk's here. He likes it here. He doesn't even have to show up, but he is." This gives them the upper hand in negotiations. If Cousins hadn't shown up, other teams might think he doesn't want to be there, which would hurt Atlanta's bargaining power. Now, I'm not sure what Cousins was doing at Flowery Branch. Was he there for a free snack? Maybe he just wanted a protein shake before hitting up Zaxby's on the way home? Or maybe he's genuinely there because he feels it's his job and he wants to be a good teammate. If that's the case, color me shocked. But let's be real. Everything we've seen from Cousins suggests he's not fully committed. Remember when he went on Radio Row before the Super Bowl and casually mentioned he played through a shoulder and elbow injury? That was news to us. Raheem Morris never even hinted at that injury. The only time Cousins popped up on the injury report was for an expected injury report when there was no practice. The next day, he was fully cleared. So, either he made Morris look clueless, or he was trying to tell other teams, "Hey, I didn't play poorly last year, I was hurt." Then there's the meeting with Arthur Blank, where Cousins asked to be traded to a team where he could start. Blank took 5 pages of notes during that conversation. 5 pages. I've never taken 5 pages of notes in my life, not even in a class or a prison lecture on how to escape. So, all signs point to Cousins not wanting to be in Atlanta. I'm not a fan of keeping players who don't want to be there. But if he's willing to be a backup, you can't ask for a better one. But let's be real. Does anyone think Cousins is suddenly okay with being a backup? Just a few months ago, he was looking for a starting gig. Raheem Morris probably did a double take when Cousins walked in. Just 3 weeks ago, he said, "I don't think he'll be here. If he is, we'll welcome him, but I'm not going to get worked up about it." So it's not just me who's surprised by Cousins showing up. I'm not sure what exactly Kirk Cousins was doing at the Falcons facility. Maybe he just wanted to grab some stuff from his locker or check out the workouts. Honestly, I won't pretend to know what goes on during those voluntary sessions. They're pretty closed off and the media doesn't get access, but it's definitely surprising to see him there. Now, Adam Schefter mentioned earlier this week that the Falcons publicly claim they're not interested in trading Cousins. However, behind the scenes, they've been talking to teams and asking for a lot in return. Atlanta wants any team that trades for Cousins to cover $20 million of the $45 million in guarantees left on his contract, but so far, no one's biting. But here's the silver lining. Cousins showing up to these workouts gives Atlanta some leverage. They can tell other teams, "Hey, we don't have to trade Kirk because he's here. If you thought we had to move him because he'd be a no-show all year, think again." This could raise their asking price, whether it's a third-round pick or something else. Now, the big question is, does Kirk really want to be a backup to Michael Pennington? In a perfect world, sure, it sounds good. You're already paying him, and with Pennington's injury history, Cousins stepping in for a few games would be a solid backup plan. I'd feel way more comfortable with Cousins than with Emory Jones or Easton Stick, but let's not forget the human element here. In a locker room of 53 players all working toward a Super Bowl, everyone has a role, starters and backups alike. If the backup doesn't want to be there, that's not a good vibe. When Cousins asked Arthur Blank to be traded, it couldn't have been clearer that he's not fully committed to the Falcons. So, here's the deal. If Kirk came to me and said, "I've thought it over. and I'm ready to be a backup and help Michael prepare every Sunday, then sure, I'd be on board. But let's be real, that's not likely to happen. Next up, I want to talk about the Falcons potentially trading out of pick 15. Along with the Kirk Cousins news, there's some good news about acquiring more draft capital, which everyone knows the Falcons are eager to do. We'll dive into that in just a moment, but first, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, they've made daily fantasy sports accessible to everyone. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a chance to win up to 2,000 times your cash. If you're a baseball fan, right now they have Austin Riley's hits set at 0.5. I'd take the more on that. And for Matt Olson, I'd go with the less on Nolan Arenado. It's a fun way to engage with the playoff games you're watching. I was up late last night watching the Stars and Avalanche in overtime. No free ads, but it's a great way to add some excitement to the games. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS for $50 after your first $5 lineup. Now, back to the Falcons potentially trading out of pick 15. This has been a hot topic, and I'm not breaking any news here. The Falcons are definitely looking to move back from that first-round spot to acquire more draft capital. They've got 3 picks in this draft, but honestly, I don't care much about those 7th-rounders. If the Falcons can find a way to move back into day 2, that would be a win. I'm sure Terry Fontenot would jump at the chance to make a move here. Atlanta could really step in as a solution for another team's problem. Albert Breer had a fantastic article today highlighting some interesting trade chatter leading up to the draft. One thing that stood out to me was that the Houston Texans are sniffing around for a trade-up. It's no secret they need help on the offensive line, and I expect them to target strong character players as they reshape that unit. The Texans have 2 teams ahead of them, the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings, who could also take an offensive lineman. This is where Atlanta can swoop in. If they can convince Houston that they need to keep C.J. Stroud healthy, they should go after the 3rd best offensive lineman in this draft. Jumping from 25 into the top 10 is probably too steep, so they might miss out on guys like Will Campbell from LSU or Armonu from Missouri. But if they want to secure the next best tackle, Atlanta can help them move up in the draft. I can see the Falcons engaging in trade talks with Houston, offering pick 15 in exchange for their first-round pick while moving back 10 spots. The Texans have an extra 3rd-round pick from the Laramie Tunsil trade, so they might be willing to part with one of their day 2 picks. This would give the Falcons a second-round pick, bringing their total for day 2 up to 2. It's not perfect, but it's definitely better than where they are now. So, keep an eye on the Falcons potentially making a move with the Texans. If you're Atlanta, you'd be thrilled to get an extra pick without seeing a significant drop-off in talent from the player you'd get at 15 versus the one at 25. I could see Mel Williams still being available at 25, and I know many of you would be happy with that pick at 15. The same goes for James Pierce. Nobody would be throwing their TVs out the window if that was the choice. And let's not forget about Donovan Ezekwe from Boston College, who racked up 16.5 sacks last year. These are solid pass rushers who could be available at 25, and you'd probably be okay with taking them at 15 because the difference in talent this year is marginal. I really like the idea of the Falcons trying to get back into day 2 of the draft. Let's break down some stats for these players. Ezekwe had 16.5 sacks and 60 pressures last year. He wasn't a highly touted recruit, and I have some concerns about whether he can play all 3 downs or if he's just a pass rush specialist. But when he's rushing the passer, he produced fantastic numbers for the Eagles. Now, let's play a little hypothetical game here. Picture this. On one side of the screen, you have no trade back, and you get Mike Green at 15, and then Trey Amos, the Ole Miss corner, at 46 with no 3rd-round pick. On the other side, you trade back, grab Mike Williams in round 1, keep Trey Amos for consistency, and add Alfred Collins at the end of round 2 to help replace Grady Jarrett. Personally, I'm leaning toward the right side of the screen. I like Mike Green, but I'm not convinced he's that much better than Williams to justify passing up the chance to get an extra second-round pick. Plus, with that extra pick, you gain flexibility. If you move back and get pick 58 from Houston, you won't feel pressured to grab a corner or safety in round 2. You could even go for an offensive tackle instead. If you're thinking, man, we really like both these edge rushers, but we can't go back-to-back on edge, that extra second-round pick gives you the freedom to do just that. You can grab 2 edge rushers and still get a corner later on. Earlier, you might have felt compelled to take a corner in round 2 because it would be your last chance to get a good one until round 4. So if Houston wants to get their guy, they should give Atlanta a call. I'm typing a big Y for yes on moving back 10 spots and getting back into day 2 of the draft with that second-round pick. And who knows, you could even trade back from 46 to get back into round 3, although that might be pushing it a bit.